It's no secret that some of my favorite type of Halloween content are horror anthologies. A collection of short stories meant to scare the crap out of you. If you grew up loving Halloween as much as I did, you saw these all over the place on TV. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Goosebumps? Those were technically horror anthologies since each episode told a different story that wasn't linked to another story, for the most part. Then you have things like Trick or Treat. One of the most classic examples is 1982's original Creepshow, which I did cover last year on this channel. If you'd like to, you could go ahead and click that video right up there after you watch this one. Creepshow has always been one of my required Halloween viewings, the pieces of content that you have to watch every year during Halloween time, which is September through the end of October. And over the years, it has become sort of a cult classic among horror fans. There was also Creepshow 2, which in my opinion, it was kind of hit or miss. I like the first one a lot better. And last year at Hollywood's Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, they even had a Creepshow haunted house walkthrough, which makes me incredibly jealous. That one wasn't part of the Orlando lineup where I'm located. Hopefully we get that one in the future. Well, now there's something new to the Creepshow family. Semi-new. It did air last year, so I guess it's not new anymore. It aired September 2019, exclusively on Shudder. It was actually the reason I even signed up for Shudder to begin with, and it's as awesome as I wanted it to be. It's really good. Making new horror stories while still feeling like Creepshow, kind of like Tales from the Crypt. Creepshow still starts out with its own monster, the Creep, introducing the viewer to each story from within the pages of the fictional Creepshow comic book. He's animatronic most of the time, and he looks great. No surprise there, since Greg Nicotero, heavily involved with The Walking Dead, is a producer on the series. And the Creep sometimes switches to an animated form, just like in the original also. Creepshow the series follows the same formula of telling us different scary stories not connected to each other, and they're a mix of original content, adaptations of existing short stories, and somewhere in between. As of now, there's one season consisting of 6 episodes that cover 2 stories each with a total of 12 stories. So I'm going to cover the entire series in these videos broken up into 3 parts. And hearing that back, I know that sounds very confusing, so just don't worry about any of that and just sit back and watch. Also, there will be spoilers ahead, but before we get into everything, I'd like to go ahead and introduce my Patreon page. If you'd like to help support the channel and allow me to continue creating content like this for all time, you can become a patron for as little as $1 a month by clicking on the link in the description or heading over to patreon.com/GamerThumbTV. And for their continued support, I'd also like to thank my current patrons and channel members also listed in the description. Let's go ahead and start with Episode 1, Gray Matter, inspired by a Stephen King short story published in 1973. This is one of those stories that's all about build-up. You're not quite sure what's going on until it progresses to the final reveal, as the main character reveals more bits and pieces of info. There's a really bad storm coming to a small town, and most people have evacuated with a bunch of supplies, except for a few that decided to ride out the storm. If you're a horror buff, you'll immediately recognize some of the actors in here, some pretty big names actually. Adrienne Barbeau plays Miss Parmalee. She was the super annoying wife in the original Creepshow that the husband shot.
Wilma!
Your husband's calling you, Billy. Oh, God, Henry, what's wrong now?
And she also played Stevie Wayne, the radio DJ from the original Fog movie, which is where I know her from best. My 3rd favorite movie of all time, by the way. She's got a mold problem in her store that keeps coming back no matter how many times it's taken care of. Then we have Giancarlo Esposito, famously known as Gus from Breaking Bad, one of the best characters in modern television. And Tobin Bell, the Jigsaw Killer. I love seeing anything that he's in, and he still has that gruff Jigsaw voice, which he uses to set the tone for the entire series.
I remember something that my daddy used to say to me. He'd say, son, there are things in the corners of this world that if you look them right in the face, they'll drive you insane.
Instead of playing a serial killer this time, he plays the police chief that's keeping an eye on the town. But the story revolves around a young boy named Timmy Grenadine. and his father Richie. See, Timmy comes in all the time buying a super cheap beer called Hero Supreme for his father, but on this particular night, it's clear that something is wrong between Timmy and his dad.
What's wrong?
I don't know. I can't say. He's real sick. I don't want to go back. Please. I never want to go back.
They almost make it seem like Richie's an abusive father, but it's quite the opposite. He's a loving father, but he's a man that's suffering. The chief and his friend leave to go check on his dad, and Timmy sits down with some bacon and eggs to reveal the truth behind his father to Miss Parmalee. Timmy's mother died, and his dad fell into a deep depression, so he began drinking more. At first, it was once a week on Friday nights, then it became nightly after work. Then he was fired for drinking on the job, and constantly promised that he would stop one day.
I'm gonna quit. I promise. You gotta believe me.
And his father began paying the bills by winning drinking contests, which I find so confusing. Where can you do drinking contests on a regular basis that give you enough money to cover your bills on a monthly basis? Eventually, the excessive drinking caught up to him, and one day, something was off. Tommy found his dad passed out, and he began watching soap operas, something he never did before. He wanted the blinds closed, he wanted to sit in the dark and watch his soaps. Bizarre behavior, to say the least. Something was in that last Hero Supreme beer that caused changes in him. He wanted the beers heated up on the stove for some reason. He wanted the radiator in the house at full blast, but he wasn't just different mentally. No, he was physically changing.
I'm gonna call the doc.
Don't you dare, or I'll touch you, and you'll look like this.
I love that as he's changing, they don't actually show the viewer what he looks like under those sheets. It's one of those horror movie generalizations that some things are scarier when they're left a mystery. It also reminds me of the story in the original Creepshow when Stephen King is slowly turning into a plant monster. Except this time it's something more reminiscent of The Thing, second favorite movie of all time, by the way. The hunger beginning to consume Timmy's dad became more powerful, and eventually he didn't want to feed on just beer anymore. And Timmy was forced to bring other sources of food.
No.
I brought them to him.
No. We gotta get out of here. We gotta go.
The beer has turned Timmy's dad into some kind of goopy monster that literally absorbs victims whole, then multiplies himself. It's horrifying, although I do prefer when they don't use CG. It's real obvious that it's made digitally, but I get it with what they were trying to show here.
Doc!
And the ending goes from 0 to 100 real quick. Richie continued multiplying himself, everyone's panicking, and Miss Parmalee is calculating how long before he takes over the world. It just jumps to this apocalyptic scenario from 1 second to the next.
Oh, God, please! God, no!
Dixie, what in the good Lord's name are you doing? We can't stop them!
Stop them!
3.8 billion! At this rate, in 6 days!
6 days! 6 days to what?
The end! The end of everything!
So if you like cheap beer, make sure you don't go too cheap because you could turn into a monster. What's so well done about this episode is that you can easily interpret it as a message on alcoholism, and I think that's when these shorts are at their best, when it can be interpreted different ways depending on the viewer. To children that have dangerously alcoholic parents, the parent can look like a monster to them the more they dive into that lifestyle, and Creepshow takes that idea and makes it literal. Now for episode 2, The House of the Head. I can't help but think that's a play on words on House of the Dead, although the story is absolutely no relation at all. With this one, I immediately recognized the little girl, Kaylee Fleming, who plays older Judith in the Walking Dead series. In Creepshow, she plays Evie, a young girl that isn't into video games, electronics, or playing outside. She likes staying indoors and playing with her new dollhouse, and the Smith family of dolls inside. This episode is one of my absolute favorites, and for the most part, almost nothing really happens. There's no transforming monster that gobbles up people and multiplies in order to take over the world. It's more subtle, unsettling horror, more atmospheric, focusing on something being scary because it's out of place. Naturally, we are fearful of the unknown. One day, while playing with her dollhouse, she notices that a new piece appeared inside that wasn't there before. A little monster head, and all the other figures moved on their own.
Who are you? I didn't put you there. How did you get there? Weren't you two laying down? Are you guys worried about something? Ethan? Are you okay? Who moved you guys?
So Evie starts becoming more and more curious about what's going on with her dollhouse. After coming home from the movies with her mom, she immediately runs back upstairs to check inside the dollhouse. Everything's different, all the pieces are moving around again, and I cannot express how fast I would have thrown that dollhouse in the trash, or given it away to someone I don't like. She thinks her little doll family's haunted, understandably so, and I really love the camera work here with its shots focusing on the house and zooming in and out. It's all very effective at creating this mood.
Doing in this house? You don't belong here.
And the little Smith dolls inside the house, it's like they're alive and aware that this intruder is in their home, this creepy decapitated head. It's basically a scary version of Toy Story. When the people aren't around, the toys somehow come alive in their own way. Evie comes to the conclusion that they need protection from the head, and she goes back to the toy store where she got the house to pick up a protector, a police officer figure that can keep the family safe and investigate the head. And the cop goes to work, traveling on his own through the house with his gun drawn looking for the head.
You're looking for the head. Find it.
But he doesn't do a very good job.
Oh my God. Stay away from the Smiths. Stay away from me too.
By the way, up there in the corner, there's a little Easter egg you could see there. There's a Raggedy Ann doll, which was the real-life doll behind the Annabelle story, another haunted object. If you watch that movie, the real-life doll looked nothing like the movie one. At this point, Evie is convinced that the head is trying to murder her little doll family, and goes back to the toy store, this time to get some sort of spiritual protector, like a priest or a rabbi, to keep the family safe since the police officer figure failed. Instead, she gets an Indian spiritual protector, another Easter egg this time from Creepshow 2, by the way. Evie becomes obsessed with the strange events in the dollhouse. While she's hanging out with her family, it's all she can think about, and as soon as she can, she rushes back upstairs to see what progress the Indian has made. Not much.
No! Look out! Oh no. Ethan!
And this is where the idea of the head becomes very interesting. She freaks out, throws it in her room, and then she realizes, yeah, I probably shouldn't leave it sitting around in my room. And when she finds it, oh, what a surprise. The head is full size. It really makes you think. The head was inside the dollhouse and small, and bad things started happening inside of it. Now the head was out in the real world at full size, so could this mean bad things would start happening to her family now? Is the head some kind of bad omen? Maybe she's actually living inside a dollhouse of her own, and others are looking in on her. I know that's going a bit deep, but that's why this is such a good episode. You trying to decipher the meaning of the severed head. Where did it come from? Was it some evil spirit that the dollhouse was containing, and she just released it by taking it out? We never really get those questions answered. It just leaves the viewer to form their own hypotheses. But Evie decides at this point to get rid of the damn house. It took all of that for her to get rid of it. Again, one of my favorite episodes in the whole series, showing that jump scares aren't necessary to be scary. It's terrifying on atmosphere alone, combined with your own imagination. Episode 3, Bad Wolf Down. This one I really liked a lot for a different reason. I've always been interested in world history, and this one combines history and supernatural occult type of stuff into one. This story takes us back to World War II. American soldiers are in a battle against Nazi forces, and they retreat into a forest after killing many of them. They find a small building to hide out in, and it's an old police station that was taken over by Nazis at some point. But there is something much scarier in the forest than German troops. There seem to be dangerous wolves in the area. This is essentially a survival story. The American soldiers are stuck in this building in enemy territory. They have no idea how they're going to escape alive, and it's only a matter of time before they're found. And chaos ensued inside the station before they arrived. There's scratches on the wall, there's blood splatters, something evil was in here.
Oh, I'm being the asshole? No, Bugs Bunny's the asshole. Of course you are. Gentlemen, this is the last thing we need right now. What happened here? Captain, his throat's slashed. He can't talk. He's dead.
And it turns out that one of the Nazis they killed was the son of a commander. And instead of being distraught that his son was taken from him, he's more upset that his son failed him.
How could my only son allow this? You have dishonored the Schmelzgerat name.
By the way, you may recognize the commander. That is the legendary Jeffrey Combs, who horror fans will recognize as the Reanimator. It's wonderful seeing him perform in Creepshow, and this episode also makes use of that exaggerated neon lighting that the original used to really affect the mood. It looks and sounds awesome.
They will suffer greatly.
Back in the police station, the American soldiers realize that there was a woman locked in one of the cells, and one of them gets startled and shoots her accidentally. But there's something unusual about her, warning them to go away or she'll kill them. And this soldier, Quist, is a dick. Quist wants to kill her for being too loud, and he's afraid she'll reveal their location. All he cares about is his own survival, and he locks them in there with her, abandoning his unit.
You guys are all a bunch of goddamn lunatics! What happened to you, Quist? You used to be someone I could trust.
What changes a man?
Bastard!
Sorry, boys.
Come back here, Quist!
Can't risk a bullet in the back.
Quist! Quist!
Meanwhile, they think the woman is dying, but it turns out there's something special about her. Her wounds heal really quickly, like Wolverine. Something unnatural, to say the least. Turns out, she's a werewolf. She's been cursed by the affliction, and she wants to die. She can't live anymore with the horrible things she's done. And what kills a werewolf? Silver, which one of the soldiers happens to have a cross made out of. But time is running out, and the Nazi commander is right outside with a bargain.
If you come out now unarmed and accept your fate, your death will be quick and painless. But if you force me to risk the lives of my men to expel your 50 hides, You will die in unimaginable agony.
It's clear that the soldiers are screwed, surrounded on all sides. There's no way out. The logical thing to do, of course, is to give her the cross so she could kill herself with it. But before she does that, she turns them all into werewolves and gives them superpowers. It's such a crazy idea, but I mean, what else could they do at this point? They had to. And the werewolf transformations look awesome. They flip through comic book pages and then you see the finished product. I mean, they likely did this just to avoid having to create full transformation sequences like many Hollywood movies do, but it fits the overall theme of Creepshow with the whole comic book thing. The Nazis begin their attack, and what ensues is an outstanding display of practical effects, no CG required, and that signature lighting while the Nazis fall victim to a bloodbath. And the end is kind of funny. The traitorous sergeant's running away after leaving his friends behind, and he just explodes. He's missing an arm, he's missing a leg, and his fellow soldiers find him. And at this point, they've already accepted they're werewolves, and they enjoy it.
It's like you said, Sergeant. War changes a man.
Episode 4, The Finger. This is the humorous episode, filled with plenty of dark comedy. It goes into the themes in horror related to our human sense of curiosity, where sometimes we tend to mess with things we shouldn't mess with just because we want to see what happens. And it also breaks the fourth wall with the main character telling his story directly to the audience. This time our main character is Clark Wilson, and there's no other way to put this. This guy's life sucks. He walks around the neighborhood alone and likes collecting random things that people throw away. He's a bit of a hoarder. He relates to thrown out objects that were once new, things that had a purpose once but are now discarded. It's kind of sad actually that he relates to that. And he was also married to a woman with kids, but she divorced him and took her family with her, and her kids also happen to suck. One of them quite literally.
Her idiot son Ricky stole my car and tried to hawk it. Her daughter once offered me a blowjob to keep quiet about her meth habit, and the fact that her latest fiancé was doing time for murder. But hey, it's the American dream, right? Domestic bliss.
Fairly dysfunctional family overall. He also works in a web design job that barely pays him or gives him work. He lives at the bottom of the barrel, and he is horribly in debt.
This is a call from a debt collector. This call may be recorded for quality assurance. Your account is important to us.
Why don't you just fucking die? Die, you fucking vampires!
Well, on one night, his life changed. He was walking around looking for things to collect, and he found a finger. Hence the name of the episode, The Finger. The finger doesn't look like anything he'd ever seen before, and his curiosity was sparked. The road to his downfall. He starts researching what it could be, and he accidentally spills beer on it. Beer, again, being the catalyst that begins something horrifying.
Wow. That's noteworthy.
So he decides to put the finger in his fridge and see what happens. Apparently sucking up the beer started some kind of growth process. The finger is no longer just a finger. It started growing into a hand, and in 24 hours, he had an entire arm. Whatever he found was regenerating, and he became obsessed with it. 3 days later, he went to check on the arm, and it was gone. Instead of being terrified at what the hell he grew, instead he just feels abandoned, just like when his family left him.
This wasn't like misplacing a set of keys. This was the first time something I had salvaged, something I had saved, abandoned me.
But the feeling didn't last long. On one lonely evening, he hears a banging, and his little monster returned home. And this little monster is up to no good.
That's a heart.
It left a human heart in his garage, and suddenly he gets a doorbell ring. It's the cops, and they have the news that his ex-wife that he hates so much is dead, and he's completely devastated.
Oh, dear God, no. No. Not my Samantha. Not my beautiful Samantha.
Actually, he couldn't be more pleased that she was dead.
Bitch didn't even have any contacts. That's how much everyone hated her. Well, except her ex-husband, me. And of course, no one could find her kids. The unholy spawn.
He knows his little monster did it, and instead of telling the police, this is where the story gets wild. We get a full look at the monster, and it almost looks like a mix of a baby xenomorph from Aliens and Pumpkinhead. He scares the hell out of him, but the two form a bond with each other. An almost symbiotic relationship where they grow to need one another. He names the monster Bob, and takes him in as a pet. Bob likes to sleep in the freezer in his garage, Bob likes to watch TV, and Bob also loves popcorn. And apparently Bob hates everyone that bothers his owner. He gets another call from a debt collector, and Bob goes out to somehow find the debt collector and take him or her out.
Fuck off, you Nazi bitch! Fuck off and leave me alone! I didn't recognize this one at first.
That is a tongue.
Somehow Bob knew who and where.
It was her. The Nazi bitch.
Did Bob fly all the way to a call center in Texas? Georgia? India?
He almost gets in a fight with the truck driver, and I swear I did not make this up. He brings back the guy's balls. Clark Wilson has become the definition of accomplice to murder. Bob kills people, Clark disposes of the remains in various ways, rinse and repeat. And eventually, no surprise here, he loses complete control of the situation, and Bob's little murder sprees get bigger, bringing more pieces and larger ones, including entire heads. And the police start getting more suspicious, and it gets to the point where he can't hide it anymore.
Couldn't kill Bob or get rid of him. I couldn't even hurt him. And why would I?
With such an insane story he completely believes, Clark avoids jail time and ends up in the loony bin. He has absolutely lost his mind, and he's convinced that Bob will always come back for him.
Bob loves me.
I found The Finger extremely entertaining. It's the perfect example of how many of these stories have completely different feels, and that continues for the rest of the series. Make sure you join me next time for part 2, where I'll cover the next 4 stories. I'll catch you guys later. Since you made it to the end of this video, I assume you enjoyed it, so why don't you go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any new content. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, links in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can join my Patreon or become a channel member. This is Fabian, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.